Metal Gear fans, hello and welcome to another episode of the Patriotcast, your number one Metal Gear Solid fan podcast. We've been away for a week, so I've been away, and unfortunately I'll say now we're going to be away next week as well because I've got a huge family do. My great now 80th birthday, so everyone's going. So unfortunately no Patriotcast next week, but we're going to try to make it extra good this week. With me today I have two of my returning co-hosts. Of course, with me today I have Jordan. How are you doing, Jordan?
I'm great, thank you, Andrew.
Right, great to hear. And of course with me I have David rejoining us. David, how are you doing?
Great, thanks.
Okay, it's great to have you guys here. So, for this episode again, we want to try to keep it casual. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about the one slightly, I don't want to say big piece of news, but a piece of news nonetheless, about Peace Walker, and then we're just going to move in and talk some more casual Metal Gear. I want to ask David a couple more questions because last time we didn't really get the chance to, just talk casual Metal Gear. So we'll move straight into it. This week, Japanese biggest video game magazine, Famitsu, gave Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker its review, and this is kind of like the main, this is the biggest magazine. Am I right saying this guy's the biggest Japanese games magazine, right?
Yeah. I think it is, yeah.
Yeah, and it's kind of like, it's the biggest, and the way it works is they have 4 different reviewers, and the 4 reviewers review the game based on the maximum they can do is 10, so it's a 10 marking system, and very rarely do games get a perfect score, which is 40. And Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker is one of those games. Just to give you a quick look, the games that have gotten a perfect...
I'm looking at it too.
Yeah, the games that have gotten a perfect 40 before have been Ocarina of Time, Soul Calibur, Vagrant Story, Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Nintendo, Final Fantasy, that's 12, right? So,
yeah,
12. Final Fantasy 12, Super Smash Bros. Brawl, and Metal Gear Solid 4 Peace Walker, and a bunch of other ones I don't have time to. But, so, those are just some of the games. Very, of course, all very high-profile games. For example, Vagrant Story, I have no idea what that is. So, it's and I mean, in no stretch are we saying that Metal Gear doesn't deserve a perfect 40, but a lot of the websites have been saying, don't, and Kotaku is one of them, basically saying don't trust Famitsu on these games reviews because they're biased, and like one of the main points people have about this is like Famitsu has product placements inside Peace Walker itself. And like there's a guy on the cover who's like the president of the Famitsu magazine and that kind of stuff. So what do we think about this? David, what do you think about this review and this whole, don't want to call it controversy, but issue?
I'd agree now. I don't think it can be trusted. Famitsu has been plugging Peace Walker since, I think it was actually the very first image or information that we ever heard before we even knew Peace Walker existed. It showed the website that would lead to the countdown for E3. So they've been on the ball. They're in with Peace Walker from the very beginning. That doesn't mean that it doesn't deserve a perfect score. It probably it is good, but we can't until we've seen maybe 3, 4, 5 other reviews.
Definitely. And I mean, the concept of bribing, reviewers being bribed has always been around there, I listen to and follow other games websites and stuff, and for example, IGN would always joke about, Sony have sent us a big money hat, and that's why we reviewed this and this game well, and, we're wearing the Microsoft money hat. And, a lot of game reviewers don't do it, they don't have needs, but Japan's a different culture. There's a very different way of doing business there. So So, and a lot of people are saying that, people don't read Famitsu as much as they used to with the internet around, so they need to make money somehow, so they've been basically making deals with companies like Konami, high-profile developers, that kind of stuff. So, Jordan, what do you think about this issue?
Well, giving anything a perfect score is pretty difficult. If you think about being subjective about everything, it's kind of impossible for anything to be perfect, really.
Definitely.
Especially if you look at it in time, it will be dated in things in 10 years' time, and does it deserve a perfect score still? I do find it difficult to imagine that. I've always been a little bit trying not to get my hopes up about Peace Walker, thinking it's going to be sort of another portable ops thing on the PSP and things. And I'm just looking through the cast of characters, and pretty much it's a whole new cast apart from Big Boss. And to be a perfect game, are all the characters going to be memorable, and are they all going to show up in future games and things? It just sounds really difficult to have a perfect game when you're basically taking portable ops and just sort of, part two with a whole new cast. It's going to be interesting, and I think maybe we can't judge it until we've played it ourselves.
Right. Of course, yeah, definitely agree with you on that. Reviewing video games, it's a bit different from reviewing a piece of music or movies, because, a good piece of music or movie, for example, someone reviewed Michael Jackson's Thriller, or someone reviewed The Godfather back in the day, they're still great movies. Video games, technologically, they show their age a lot more. A movie doesn't have to have special effects to be great. Video games rely on graphics, sound, storytelling is a big part of it. So, back in the day, someone would review Zelda game very highly, and, people still say, Ocarina of Time is probably one of the best games ever, but there have been games that have been better than Ocarina of Time, maybe not as a complete package, but better in every single aspect, better sound-wise, story-wise, gameplay-wise, graphics-wise. So games do deteriorate with age, and with Peace Walker this is very interesting because, again, it's all about being objective, I guess. If you want to rate a game 10 from a purely say a graphical standpoint, you're going to need, which technically is kind of what it should be if you think about it. It's perfect. It needs to be perfect in every area. So Peace Walker has, I guess, the best graphics for the PSP that we've seen. I think it has. God of War has come close, but graphics-wise, I think it is the best for the PSP, but it's not for, say, something like the PS3 or the Xbox.
Yeah.
So you have to be limiting the review within the context of the console which you're doing it in. So it's very interesting the way they review it. But in no way I would try to say that Peace Walker deserves less than 40. I'm sure if it's a good game, then it deserves the perfect score.
Yeah. When we look at the other games that they're given 40 to, were there any other Metal Gear Solid games? I don't think there were. There was one. Four, I thought. Yeah, but, Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, all those are awesome games, but they didn't get 40. And so it's kind of interesting that this one did, and 4 did as well. If you think that they just started recently giving the Metal Gear Solid games 40, you could say it's a bit of a conspiracy then, as if they started buying them up for Metal Gear Solid 4 and it's just continued the deal.
You can go the same route with Nintendo. All these Nintendo games, Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker, and Nintendogs. I played Nintendogs, it's fun for half an hour, but I would in no way give it a perfect 40, and I don't think any of you guys would either. Smash Brothers Brawl, I was a big fan. I was disappointed by Brawl, certain issues here and there. So it's very different. I think Western video game reviewers are a lot more harsh on video games, while Japanese, there's a bit of there's business going on under the table, I think. Giving something like Monster Hunter Try, I've played. I don't know how good this new one is, but I've played the original ones, and it was hard for me to get into them. But anyway, let's start to move off. It's quite interesting. We'll definitely be following the Peace Walker review cycle as it gets nearer to the west. So that's kind of like the big piece of Metal Gear news around little bits here and there that really don't matter, aren't that interesting. So let's move into the discussion itself. Dave, as I said before, fortunately we didn't get to talk to you as much as we would have liked to last time. What I want to do is, I just want to ask you a couple of more specific, more detailed questions about, your Metal Gear fandom, and from then on, it'll just we'll just go on into our conversation. Okay, so I mean, we've already established some basic core things Metal Gear wise. So let me ask you this: what is your favorite aspect about the Metal Gear games overall as a package?
I think it has to be the story, the plot, the cutscenes.
Right. Are you a big movie guy? Are you the supporter of having what they call the 2-hour cutscenes in Metal Gear Solid 4, as some critics say? Do you enjoy them, or would you rather?
Yeah, I'm quite happy to sit through them.
Definitely, it's nice. I can have my dinner during one of the 4 cutscenes.
And you can pause it too, which is a great.
Oh, that was a lot better because with Metal Gear Solid 2, so many times I'd be playing MGS2, and it'd be like, I remember. I was playing MGS2 and it was the end of Snake's mission. It was the end of the tanker mission, and a lot of big stuff went down. It was the bit where Ocelot turns into kind of Liquid the Hand, takes over for the first time, and he jumps and he goes, and then Snake's like, the Snake is like, So, and the whole place starts getting flooded, and like, I think my mum called me, for dinner or something, and I had to go because my parents were getting really angry. I'm like, what is he doing there? So I had to quickly go, and it literally took me like 2 minutes to do something that they called me for, and then I came back. And I went from like Liquid taking it over, and then I came back, and the bit that I see is the actual ship just sinking into darkness. So, because there's no way of pausing it, so I missed like a very important cutscene, and I was pretty pissed at that. So, I mean, yeah, okay, sorry. So, Dave, what is your favorite game from a story standpoint? What is your favorite MGS game and why?
Well, from a story aspect, it has to be the fourth. The fourth game wouldn't be my favorite overall, but story and plot-wise, definitely the fourth is some brilliant cinematic cutscenes that you could only find in a movie, and you would not find them in any other game. I just think probably one of my favorite cutscenes is in Europe, just when Liquid meets up with Snake and he activates it. I'm sure you all know that cutscene. Bang, bang, bang. Fantastic. Helicopters flying, smashing, amazing stuff, really.
It's interesting you say 4, because me and Jordan talked about this a couple of episodes back. From a story standpoint, narrative-wise, was there anything that you thought you were going to get that was going to carry on from MGS2 that we didn't, for example? Like, were you expecting to get, like, the story visually of how Raiden became, like, the exoskeleton and how they rescued Sonny and all that kind of stuff? Did you expect that, or did you just didn't, I guess?
I think Raiden was always a mystery, like, even before we seen Metal Gear Solid 4, the cutscenes, he was a ninja, and I think that was kind of cheap. They just tried to put a ninja in every Metal Gear Solid. I don't think any of them have come close to Frank Yeager or Gray Fox, but I suppose they did a good job, but I don't think I wasn't really expecting any more from him.
Yeah.
I was more interested in the Snake point of view, so that's all I really anticipated in that sense.
Right.
Well, when you think about the ninja in Metal Gear Solid 2, I mean, Olga in the suit, it was, it is kind of a weird thing. I mean, I get it. It's meant to be, they're pretending all the scenario of Metal Gear Solid 1 and all that. But she doesn't really do anything in the suit, does she? I mean, like, the other ninjas that are real ninjas, I mean, I don't really think of them as, the other ones aren't really just wearing a suit, it's more a part of their body, like Raiden. I mean, apparently it's just his brain and his spine that's left. She's just a woman in a suit that she just puts it on and off, and she didn't really do anything. I mean, maybe she was moving faster, or maybe it was just like a bullet time camera, but yeah, that was kind of a cheap trick in a way, just to keep having a ninja, although I do understand why in Metal Gear Solid 2, since it's meant to be an emulation of 1.
Going back to MGS4, how did you feel about, and Jay as well, about the whole nanomachine part of the story, where basically Kojima took the shortcut in basically saying that nanomachines were responsible for most
like
of
Star Wars.
like midichlorians, nanomachines were responsible for everything that was an open story point from the second one, i.e. vamp, and that kind of stuff. How did you feel about the nanomachines being used so heavily in MGS4? I'll start with Dave. How did you feel?
Well, it was fair enough using it for things that sort of made sense, Vamp 1, but when you use it for everything, it's sort of, you've wasted that trump card. You can explain something using nanomachines, but not for the whole Metal Gear Solid universe. I think that overdid it a bit. But only Metal Gear Solid could get away with that. I don't think any other game would. Although there was a lot of people annoyed about it, I know that. I think I do like the nanomachines, as in the rat patrol unit. They communicate easier. It stops them from having war injuries, as in mental ones. I like that aspect of it. It works in that sense.
Right. All right, cool. Jay, what did you think about the large use of nanomachines in PS4?
I did think it was weird at the time, and I think we should talk about Liquid near the end more. But it is kind of a strange thing, isn't it? You know, all the supernatural things. It's nanomachines. You know, I'm sure they are going to be cool when it is a real thing. I mean, they've been working on it for decades, probably. But yeah, and especially Vamp. I mean, I don't know. It just felt weird with Vamp. Okay, so to beat him, you inject him with a syringe, and then you can kill him. You know, what about the super speed and all that kind of stuff? But
yeah, it kind of felt like a bit of a cheap shot to me. It kind of took away the whole mystic side that the first 3 games, at least the second and third, the first 3 games, because we had Psycho Mantis there, but they relied on quite heavily, you know, because, you know, we had Psycho Mantis, and then in the third one, of course, we had the Thoro, that's right, and with the second one, you know, we had Vamp, and that kind of thing. So kind of, the nanomachines did kill a certain part of it, but I guess you had to defeat Vamp somehow, didn't you? You can just run away again, and then appear in the background of the end cutscene of the game. Couldn't have really worked. Although, I could have kind of seen that, like, you know, just the wedding scene at the end, and you just see Vamp in the bushes hiding. But anyway, so, okay, that was interesting. Jay, you wanted to talk about the Liquid towards the end. What did you want to say there?
I just wanted to mention his hand on Ocelot and all that kind of part of the story. And I mean, we'd grown up with Metal Gear Solid 2. Metal Gear Solid 2 came out a hell of a long time before Metal Gear Solid 4, which is a continuation of the story. And you know, we were told how Liquid and Ocelot were together, and how, you know, the hand took over and, brother, it's good to see you, and all that kind of stuff. And do you want to explain it better than I can? Because I get a bit confused about the ending of Metal Gear Solid 4 with Liquid.
I really don't think anyone can really explain it. Dave, help me out on this. Help me out on this if I get lost. Okay, so what happened is, going way back in true Metal Gear Solid style, is Ocelot ended up being a good guy that wanted to help Big Boss fulfill the boss.
I think they all wanted to help Big Boss.
But like, they wanted to fulfill the boss's legacy and thought of the perfect world, and then him and Zero divided, and the Patriots were, this gets really hard, the Patriots were like Eva, then Brigands, then Ocelot and Big Boss, and basically what happened is Ocelot needed to, this is where I get confused as well. Ocelot needed to do something, or to make something So he purposely got possessed by the hand through the power of meditation and will, and the hand took him over because he wanted it to, but then the change in voice actors didn't help at all, made it even more confusing, so the Western version suffered from that. So after all, in another attempt to try to tie up everything, Kojima explained this by making less sense than... Dave, help me out here.
Well, actually, I think the original voice actor for Ocelot did die in between the second and first game, so Kojima couldn't really do anything with that and found a pretty good match. But yeah, if I had to leave it where it was just the genetic DNA of Liquid was altered Ocelot's genetic makeup. Again, impossible, but makes more sense than what they try to do, I think. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. I mean, having the voice, like the voice change, I definitely think they shouldn't have had the voice change if they wanted to go along with what they ended up going along with, because once a person's voice changes, it kind of becomes more of a possessive thing, like more of a psychomantis kind of thing. Because if a hand controls you, the hand isn't going to influence your body texture, so your vocal cords actually change. But I can see why. This is a perfect example. Kojima admitted he wasn't like George Lucas or anyone where he made backstories for this. The man said that he bloody made it up as he went along. So at that point, he wasn't even sure if he was going to do MGS3 or 4. So he thought to himself, yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, that sounds trippy. Yeah. Maybe he was smoking something. Who knows? So he made that, and it sounded cool. He put in weird vampire dude, cool. He put in the controlling hand. Oh, that's mystery. That's cool. Metal Gear, cool. So he made it, but I'm sure he had no story planned on how it was going to end up. He probably thought to himself, look, I'm going to make all this crap, and then some dude's going to come and clear it up. That didn't happen. So, I think that's why a lot of gamers and people have a problem with MGS, because in order to fully understand it, and I don't think any of us actually fully understand
it. Really?
Yeah. In order to understand it enough, as we do, I guess, you need to dedicate at least a decade to it. And still, you end up doing a podcast where you try to figure out one of the main plot points in the last game of the saga, and you realize that you can't really explain it. So...
Well, I've been reading the Metal Gear Solid 4 page on Wikipedia.
Right.
And maybe, it's never mentioned is that the Ocelot is the son of the boss and the Sorrow. Do they ever, they hinted it, I think. Am I right, David? I don't think they ever say that he is the son of the Sorrow. I don't think they ever say it explicitly.
No, well, he's not. Well,
he could be.
They've never outright said it.
Right. Yeah, I think if they did explain that, then I'd be willing to accept it, and it would be kind of fun. Because I don't think there's very much of Metal Gear Solid 3. Like, when you think about the settings of the other games, they're all kind of like indoors and stuff. Metal Gear Solid 3 was outdoors in the jungle. It was different, and it would be kind of, an element right at the end of Metal Gear Solid 4. We get reminded of Snake Eater. And it would be fun if they brought up, the Sorrow and the boss. So apparently that's the big explanation is, he could channel the spirits of the dead, but he also says that he used nanomachines and hypnotherapy to do it. So, maybe he was a unique person and could sort of get possessed if he wanted to by ghosts and...
Definitely. I mean...
it never says that, though.
Maybe this is something that will be explained in another Metal Gear game that will make it even more confusing than it already is.
Wasn't Metal Gear Solid 4 meant to wrap them all up?
Let's just go along with it, okay? We've got a Metal Gear Solid game, and we're getting more now, so we'll see what happens. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, Ocelot's hand, very very weird. David, what did you were you one of the people? Probably all were, but when you first saw the new Raiden, the made-over Raiden, first of all, how did you feel about Raiden? Did you like Raiden as a character? Did you like him in MGS2? Did you think he was too sissy? Would you rather have had Snake? Did you like his let's call them, deeply emotional conversations arose. What did you feel about Raiden?
To be honest, I was never really a big fan of Raiden. Right. Playing Metal Gear Solid 2, great, starting off with Snake. Then next thing, I'm some blonde person that I keep debating with my friends, is it a boy, is it a girl, is he this, is he that. Fourth one, it did a better job. I mean, it made him somewhat cool, if we can use that word. I did like how they really made him, he went through a lot more, like, in some ways he's better than Snake. He put his life on the line for Snake. I really don't like the scene with him, the very last scene with him when he meets his son Jack. He didn't know he even existed. I think that it was meant to be emotional, but it just felt very, as if they were using actors, and you could say that Raiden was a desperate actor. I know it's only a game, but just the way they portrayed him, he didn't seem to have any emotion at all. His character really lacked a lot of things that other characters have. I mean, Snake and Otacon, that relationship is, they've got a secret handshake, and they're being best buddies for what?
And they're living a big plane together in the sky. Yeah.
Alan Dave, let's go to Jupiter. Yeah.
Okay, but this is derail this a bit, but does Snake and Otacon really live in a big plane in MGS4? Who piloted the plane? Because I saw pilots.
Autopilot. Yeah.
But I swear I zoomed in and I saw people sitting behind the wheel. I saw it, so they must have hired a dude to pilot it around the world. It's like, and were they always flying in it? And why couldn't they just get a house or probably get dragged down? That was something really weird. That was another one of those things that seemed cool, but wasn't really too grounded in reality. Did you guys like the...
Well, yeah. I kind of liked it in a way. I mean, I'm interested in aviation and things like that, and I suppose it is realistic when you think about real life sort of scenarios where there's a big thing like that. All the the United States and all that, they do have sort of mobile command units or whatever you want to call them, where the boss sits in the van and it gets driven about, but he controls everything from there. So I guess it's similar. It does kind of bring up the issue that they were really flying around every place of the world, weren't they? I mean,
definitely, yeah.
Most of the games seem to take place over a few hours when you think about it. Even if the storyline takes 5 hours to play, it's normally just a few hours of real time if you think about it.
Definitely.
And it's not exactly like, how long is the timeline in Metal Gear Solid 4? Because, I mean, they must be flying at least 10, 20 hours to get to some of the places.
Yeah, it has to be.
Don't they have Skype in the future? Like when they meet up with the Resistance members in Europe? I mean, couldn't they just call them or something? But
look, it's 2014. They're still using Macs. I don't think they haven't got the cash. They haven't got the cash.
Straight for cash. Can they just use the Mark II or Mark III to do it though? Send that.
This is really true, but once you start playing MGS games so many times, you start noticing the little funny bits that aren't even really that funny, but you make them funny for yourself. For example, I've got two.
You make them funny for yourself, yeah.
I've got two. Like, Campbell seems pretty well off in that house of his, because like you see him, Campbell's some kind of a man pimp. Because, he's sitting there, and if you look behind him, he's got, like, expensive paintings and leather and, like, couches, and he's just sitting there, and he's got a nice young wife, and he's like, is he like, Don Corleone or something? I don't know. I can just imagine Don Campbell. Come here, hey, you want to do me a favor? I'm going to give you a 4x4, and then you have to make it real fun.
And did anyone think Europe looked a bit dated? I mean, even the cars and the buildings and...
Yeah, I thought it... I mean, I don't know. I thought it looked...
It looked like it was older.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were trying to go for the stereotypical classical European city, because a lot of the European cities, they preserve their architecture. They don't...
Yeah, but not their vehicles.
Oh, no. Well, that's... Seriously, Dave, I had to deal with Eastern European stereotypes all my life, having come from there, so I'm just used to it. And Eastern Europe itself was very weird. It probably was one of my least favorite acts of the game. It just felt out of place. I know they were trying.
Did you like it, David?
Actually, no, that was actually my least favorite act.
I hated it. Yeah.
I didn't like it at all. I mean, I always thought sneaking was my favorite element, but that went too far. I thought trying to catch a resistance member and follow him to Big Mama, it just took long and really didn't like it at all.
It was very repetitive, wasn't it? But the thing is, the second thing I wanted to sidetrack the show with is the bit where, in between the second and third chapter, where Campbell in his pimp house tells Snake that, okay, well, we're going to give you South America, we're going to, from the airport, I'll supply you with a 4x4, and then you have to make your way on foot. I wanted to see that. I wanted there to be this kind of like 007 moment where Snake arrives and you've got the guitars playing behind him, and there's a dude, like, at the airport when he's got the little cardboard box and it says Snake on it. He's like, Mr. Snake, here's your car. And he gets in this 4x4 and it's like a product placement for a Land Rover. And he's driving there and the wind's blowing his hair. I want to see the little stupid details.
You remember in Metal Gear Solid 3, all the talk about James Bond, that Zero loved 007. Was that any different, I wonder, in the Japanese version?
I don't know. I mean, I've never actually played the Japanese version of MGS3. If any of our listeners knows, please do tell us about any of this. But I don't know.
I would assume it would be the same though, wouldn't it? I mean, I'm sure in Japan they've heard of James Bond at least. And it did mention a lot of movies that I'd never heard of. Paramedic, she mentions a lot of horror movies and things that are very uncommon, I think. So.
Again, I think that's where they tried to bring a very Western element to MGS3, kind of based this on a 007, 60s, Dr. No kind of thing, but then again they brought back Godzilla and that kind of stuff, and Regain, Calorie Man, the chocolate, whatever it is. And, again, it brought it back to its Japanese origin. But I think MGS3 did the best out of all the 4 solid games of making it feel like a Western game, if you guys know what I mean. Didn't have any signs of Japanese at all. I mean, I've got to give them a hands up. Every single time when you enter a new area, it said it in English and it said it in Russian. And the Russian spelling was completely correct. I checked again and again, and it was correct. So they really did their research there. Well, we're going back to MGS4, and going back to Dave, you were talking about Raiden. So you weren't too keen on Raiden in MGS2. In MGS4, you got an upgrade, 2.0 Raiden. Did you, after you saw the new Raiden, did you think that we were going to play as him, and did you want to play as him, or did you want this to be a game focused completely on Snake?
Well, after Metal Gear Solid 2, we had Metal Gear Solid 3, and that was Big Boss. We had another game with Solid Snake. So obviously in my head it was, well, it could be anything. I seen Raiden and I thought there was a good possibility we would be playing him for some part of the game, but I really crossed my fingers that we wouldn't. I didn't mind him being as a side character, but for me it's always been Metal Gear Solid, not Metal Gear Solid Raiden. So I was fine with him being, a partner or whatever you want to call it, a sidekick, but not, I really didn't want the spotlight to be on him.
I mean, going back to it, both me and Jay, we liked Raiden in the second game. I thought it was an interesting character, but I felt that, and it'll be interesting what you guys think about this, I felt that in the 4th one, even though they made him so much more badass, as they say, they took away from the character of Raiden, because it was interesting seeing him kind of talk to Rose and funny and that kind of stuff. You could definitely tell that, even though people would say he was whiny and whatever people say, but he definitely had a character. He had a character and a certain character development throughout the game. He started to realize his past and origins and who he was and that kind of stuff. And so by the end of the second game, because, Snake, he's always Snake. He's always on a mission. He's always being forced to do something he doesn't want and come out of his Alaskan hut or whatever it is. And he's always, So, there's not a lot of character development in Snake, at least in the first game. There was the mayoral bit, but that was about it. With Raiden, we got the feeling that, he had all these VR missions, he's not really been in a real combat situation, and then he comes out and throughout that day, I think it was, he changes and he realizes his past and he grows as a character. And then at the very end, there is a arc where at the end him and Rose are standing happily in the crowd and the vamp is stalking them. So we get that. And then in MGS4, that's all thrown out completely out of the window and replaced by a cyborg who has no feelings, that's his family, who doesn't really communicate, appears wherever he feels like it, slaughters a bunch of guys, loses one of his limbs, and then continues doing. So there was, and
you have to mention he loses every fight that he's in. Really,
he does, doesn't he? Yeah.
Against Vamp. I was always disappointed about that. I mean, he's meant to be at least equal. You'd think probably better. It's kind of interesting. Do we even know if Raiden even has nanomachines? Because he mustn't, because he always seems to bleed to death pretty much. If nanomachines are so great and Naomi has them, can't she just give him a shot of them, and then he'd never need to have blood transfusions and he'd never bleed to death and all that? I should have just given him nanomachines.
Yeah, I think that's what you get when you use something like nanomachines or the Force. We have an entity that is so powerful and basically is your ticket out of a story plot which you can't solve. Then people can go, why can they just use nanomachines? And you get this quite a lot of something like Star Wars saying, why couldn't Obi-Wan just push Anakin into the lava with a Force push or use Force speed to save Qui-Gon Jinn from being stabbed by Darth Maul? It's a story device, people. Don't get too into this. But I know exactly what you mean, Jay. Nanomachines again. But going back to Raiden, did you guys feel the same? Jay, did you feel what I felt? Like, his whole character was just taken away and replaced by this thing?
I guess his character was very similar in a lot of ways, I thought. Although, yeah, obviously he is a very different character.
I mean, what I wanted to see, well, going back to this, what I thought Metal Gear Solid was going to be is, like, set literally after Metal Gear Solid 2, maybe a year, a couple of months after, but then maybe, see Snake and Raiden, tag team, Batman and Robin, get into whatever Sunny was being held, Area 51, whatever, somewhere else, get her out of there, boom, big hero moment, done. But they took a really different approach, and I think that was the time between MGS2 and 4 and MGS3 in between, because MGS3 added a whole other arc and story which needed to be completed, didn't it? If they went straight, this would be interesting to think about it, if they went straight from MGS2 to MGS4, which would have been MGS3, they wouldn't, and didn't make MGS4, it would have been interesting because they wouldn't have had to deal with characters like Eva and Big Boss's origins and that kind of stuff, and they could have just wrapped it up with the set of characters that they established in the first two games, but bringing in MGS3 made a whole ton of new characters and storylines which had to be wrapped up, which kind of made MGS4 the way it is. What do you think about that, guys?
Well, I like Metal Gear Solid 3 a lot. It would be my second favourite after 1, so I can't really fault them making Metal Gear Solid 4 with elements of Metal Gear Solid 3 storyline. I understand what you're saying. I mean, it would make things a lot easier, but it is one of the things we like about MGS is how filling the story is. It goes for decades, and it's not something that was thought up in 10 minutes and then say, okay, right, let's make this. This was obviously thought out a lot.
Definitely, yeah. Well, what do you think about this, Joe?
Yeah, I suppose so, yeah.
Alright, cool. I think I don't actually realise what I just said in the last 5 minutes. I think I said too much. But, yeah. Anyway, let's start wrapping this up. So, we talked about Raiden. That's the thing, so many Metal Gear games and so much, they're so complex. We can talk about it forever. So we've kind of finished off the discussion here for today. next week, what will we do next week? Well, next week there's not going to be any show, but the week after next, I was thinking that we should focus on the, what do we call them, Easter eggs, the extras in Metal Gear games. You know, that weird mini game in MGS3 where you ran around.
Love that.
Yeah, it's a weird thing, you know, because MGS has so many of these little extras that you don't really notice. You know, the posters of the semi-naked Asian girl in MGS2. You know, so.
Have you played the skateboarding?
And the skateboarding is substance, yeah.
It's dire.
It was pretty bad, wasn't it? Just seeing him fall over and get up again and again and again. And I don't even look, did you guys, like, you play the skateboarding, like, the character models for Snake and Ride, and they look nothing like they look really, like, hinged and out of place. But then, yeah, anyway. So, yeah, guys, so for what I want you two guys to do is try to remember some of the more, try to remember as many of the extras and bonuses and Easter eggs as you can for the MGS games, and we'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll have a nice long episode talking about those particular extras and particular things in the game. So hopefully that should be quite a bit of fun. So on that note, we're going to start wrapping the show up. Thank you very much to both of the guys who joined us today. Once again, we've switched feeds. I've deleted the previous account now, so if you can't find it, it's gone now. So find this somehow, and if you're listening to this, you found it. That makes sense. But so if you want to listen to mine and Jordan's other tech show, J&A show, I'll post the link in the subscription thing. Before I let my guests go, Jordan, any last words, anything you want to say, anything you want to plug, anything?
No, I'm absolutely fine.
Okay, right.
I can't wait for the next episode coming out.
Right. Yeah.
Especially about to talk about Guy Savage.
Yeah. That's a weird name, isn't it? It's a very weird name. Dave, anything you want to say?
Yeah, I mean, that's the guy. We'd like to talk about the substance and subsystems, see what you guys take on that.
Right. Okay, cool. Yeah, that'll be very interesting. So, thank you both of you guys for joining. I've had a lot of fun as always. And we will see you, Metal Gear fans, before I go, I was meant to do this at the beginning of the show. Thank you to the guys who actually rated the podcast on iTunes. If you have a spare minute, please rate the show on iTunes. We'd appreciate your support. We've had a guy called Red Helix rate 5 stars. So thank you very much to you. And on I believe on the American side, I haven't checked all the iTunes sites because it takes a long time to go around. We've got a guy called EJN who rated us 5 stars as well. So thank you very much to you two guys. If you have rated it and you're from another country and I haven't mentioned you, I'm very sorry. I'll try to find you. So thank you very much. Please rate us on iTunes if you can. Write us feedback. We'll be very interested in knowing, what you like about Metal Gear. Send us your favorite Easter eggs and extras for the next episode so we can read them out and base our discussions around that. So that'll be very fun. So thank you very much for listening to the Patriotcast, and we're out.